So we'll do a little reset if you're just joining us now on any of our social media channels. We're on CBSN, our free digital channel. It's 8 o'clock. This is Interstate 94. Here's a live chopper shot of what is going on. Interstate 94 eastbound near Cedar is blocked because a group of protesters, demonstrators entered the highway. Our Jeff Wagner has been with this group since about 6 o'clock when they originated near the Hennepin County Government Center. And Jeff is on the phone with us right now. He's on the ground. Westbound 94 is moving slowly. Eastbound 94 is shut down. That's the main artery between Minneapolis and St. Paul, and it is backed up for miles. Jeff, give us more of a sense of the...
They've also shut down the westbound lane. There is a line of law enforcement on the other side. I mean, the area we are in right now, there is no traffic moving in either direction. Maybe police did that for a specific reason, just because they don't want any vehicles coming through, whether it be westbound or eastbound. But if you can see from your aerial view, there is no traffic movement anywhere near us. Police have taken over that walkway path above us, and that walkway path that kind of goes along the retaining wall. Okay, now we're hearing it, Frank. You are all under arrest. Everybody sit down. So that's the first announcement we've heard. So we're going to take a seat, or we're grouping up with the rest of our crews. I'll stick with you on the phone, but those are the announcements you were talking about that we have now finally heard that they've kind of encircled the group. I'm seeing Minneapolis police officers on horseback stopping more people who are attempting to jump over the fence line. Some people are making a run for it. And the people who have organized the protest are trying to encourage everyone to stay put, to not go and run. I'd overheard that earlier when people were initially jumping the fence. One of the organizers with a megaphone was saying, you're only going to get arrested. Just stay with our group. Just stay together. So we're all just watching this unfold. Some people have begun to sit down.
Jeff, I can tell you, too, I don't know if you can see it, but, there's about 6 of those small buses or large vans that are behind a line of police cars. And in front of the line, there are a number of police officers marching towards this group. So want you to be aware of that and want you to understand it, because I'm not sure what you can see. Of course, from a helicopter,
yeah.
We can see this, but I can tell that they're advancing
on the highway in the middle of the pavement. A lot of people have gathered along that retaining wall, but we're very near the median where officers have begun lining up to prevent people from going over to that side. Again, we're just continuing to sit and comply with the request of the officers at this point. This seems like a coordinated plan in which the officers were in the rear. They were in the front of us at this upcoming exit at 25th Avenue, and they had assembled in the westbound lanes on I-94 and have effectively encircled the entire group. There's really no way out at this point. The people that tried to do that a few minutes ago were chased down by the officers that were on the other side of that fence line near the retaining wall you were speaking of. Some are continuing to chant while they're out here. Large groups, though, in the back area have started to sit down. I don't see anyone, being aggressive towards law enforcement, at least from my vantage point. But many of us members of media have also taken a seat here.
Hey, Jeff, if you can, too, I know you've been with these folks for a couple hours now. This was we're reporting a planned protest. It was going to happen regardless of whether Joe Biden or Donald Trump won the election. It was planned for the night after Election Day to address different concerns. What have you heard? What have people told you about why they're there and why it's important that they're on this interstate tonight?
While I believe that was sort of a jump-off point, a reason to gather the election, a reason to hold this protest to begin with. Once we started marching, it really felt no different than the protest that we were seeing ever since George Floyd's death. While in the beginning, when everyone gathered around 6 o'clock and speakers were taking turns on the microphone, yes, there was mentions of making sure every vote is counted, making sure the votes of persons of color and minorities, those that might have been more likely to send in absentee ballots, were counted. So that was sort of the starting point, but then it really delved into those topics I was discussing earlier around 5 and 6 o'clock, that people say even if Joe Biden wins, there is still oppression for persons of color, for people who are less fortunate. You know, they're still fighting for those things they were fighting for months ago, no matter what happens in the days ahead as those votes are counted, no matter who ends up in office. This is their sort of reminder that they need to keep fighting, whether that be for the disparities that persons of color are going through during this pandemic, disparities, racism, all the things that really we've been hearing since late May were again said throughout this march.
I'm getting a couple other sources and looking at some different things, and I can tell that there are dozens of state troopers in their full riot gear. I see sheriff's deputies. I see Minneapolis police. I see a lot of folks with from law enforcement, and it looks to me like there are dozens of those. Unlike, though, I think like the Philando Castile, Jamar Clark marches, or even the George Floyd, a lot of times they let those folks go for a while. I mean, I don't think you've been on that interstate more than 20 minutes and you've already got the order of clear the highway, correct?
Correct. And initially when this protest was organized, they said it would be a 2-mile march. They did not tell us the track. They didn't really tell anyone the exact route that we would go. However, we were hearing from people that 4 years ago, when a similar protest happened the day after the election, everyone gathered in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, and then they got on to I-94 at that Cedar Avenue ramp. That's exactly what happened again. So you have to wonder if law enforcement was prepared for that this time around and knew exactly where to be at the right time. When we approached that ramp from Cedar Avenue, I saw maybe a dozen or so Minneapolis police officers on bicycle, but they immediately went under arrest to public nuisance. Sit down. You're hearing that?
Yeah, repeat it. It sounds like you're
down. There's still a large, maybe the front half of the group that has not.
I heard you are all under arrest. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's what we've been hearing now a couple times here and there over the past 5 minutes. But you'd asked me earlier when we first got on the phone, Frank, if they were saying that, and they hadn't. So from what I was watching, it seemed as though the officers were more so doing their part to ensure that traffic wouldn't come through the people and just trying to maintain peace. I believe that this group was going to exit at this ramp since they said it was going to be a 2-mile march. I think it's possible that would have been 2 miles to get off here and come back, but they never made it that far. They got stopped at the ramp. I haven't, no, despite too, Frank, even though the officers are saying that, they've yet to actively walk up to the groups of people who are sitting down. If they did try to detain anyone, it was the people who were jumping over the fence and trying to, make a run for it. Ever since they've been making that announcement, they've pretty much just held the same position other than approaching those vehicles that were in the rear working as traffic control, those vehicles not being law enforcement, but organizers of the protest. So
yeah.
They did approach those people and made them get out of the car. Those drivers are now sitting in front of their vehicles in the back area.
And Jeff, as we look from the chopper now too, I mean, it's clear to us that they, for lack of a better word, have them kind of surrounded, and it's really clear too that Interstate 94, the main artery between Minneapolis and St. Paul, is shut down in the east and westbound lanes because we can see the emergency vehicles on both. But your group of the group of demonstrators are on the eastbound lane, but the whole highway is shut down, all 8 lanes or 10 lanes across the whole thing, correct?
And I have to imagine that was strategic to do exactly that, Frank, because, as people started to make a run for it, their only options, they couldn't go backwards, so they started going over the shoulder retaining wall fence until law enforcement covered that area. And I guess if they would have thought to make a run for it towards the westbound lane, well, that area was already shut down and law enforcement was waiting. So here we are.
What's that announcement, Jeff?
It's the same announcement we've been hearing. You're all under arrest for unlawful assembly. Sit down and do it now. There's really not much else I've heard from law enforcement at this point other than that same announcement. Now we're starting to hear this front group of protesters start to speak up a little bit. They're saying, "Let us through." I'm hearing that chant now. So there's a little bit of resistance near the front. I don't know if that resistance is physical at this point or if just verbal, but they're definitely not sitting down. Okay, sorry, I'm just getting another call at this point.
Go ahead, do that. I'm gonna run some video of D-Mine Chun. If you do that, and we'll get right back with you because we just got this in, and there's a couple other things that we can add to what's going on. So here's a better shot from the ground to give you an idea of how this plays out, folks. This group of people is on the eastbound side of Interstate 94 near Cedar, I believe not far from Augsburg University. Some were trying to jump the fence or the retaining wall to get out of there. The organizers asked them to stay together. This is the westbound side where law enforcement has gone ahead and stayed at that median barrier. So these people cannot move east towards St. Paul. They can't move west towards Minneapolis, and they can't go north or south because one place they have to jump a fence where there's law enforcement officers, and on the other side is the westbound lane. So they've made at least 3 announcements that have told everyone that they are under arrest, and we don't know if any arrests have been made, but as you can tell when we give you these close ground shots, there's a huge police presence because you can hear the announcement again, you are all under arrest, and they're being ordered to go ahead and get down. And again, this is a live picture of what's happening on Interstate 94 right now. This has been going on for coming up on half an hour. It's 8:15 right now. This maybe started around 7:45. I think we got the first word that law enforcement was telling them to clear the area about 8:05. Much shorter tolerance level in terms of time than we've seen for other protests here in the Twin Cities when it comes to police willingness to allow protesters and demonstrators to block big public thoroughfares and accesses. They moved in much quicker. But as we told you earlier, they were prepared for this. They were really prepared last night. They told us the type of personnel and interagency communication they had was on the level of maybe the Super Bowl or the Final Four. And frankly, there's a lot of law enforcement massed in case something was going to happen. And now they were out in force. We've seen police officers, county deputies, a lot of state patrol. And again, they've given at least 4 verbal warnings that we've heard to disperse or they will be arrested, but we haven't seen the police make any moves toward them other than to just corral them. We can tell you there are about 4 or 5 of these mini buses or kind of oversized vans that we saw behind the police vehicles. In past, we've seen police use those after they zip tie folks. They march them back and put them in these vans, and then they take them to jail for processing, or they go ahead and let them go. Jeff, are you there? Wondering what the call was, if you gleaned any more information, or if you're still with us?
We still haven't heard anything other than the same announcement from law enforcement. The one that you're. Sit down and do it now. I was just going to say, you almost wonder if it's a recording, but I think it's not, given that I just heard for the first time the mention of shut your vehicles off. Again, it almost feels like initially, whenever there was the group that ran, there was a group in the back that started to sit down, and then now it feels like people are resisting a little bit more. The groups in the front are starting to stand, they're starting to chant, they've got their phones out, they're yelling towards the officers. I don't think they're necessarily instigating them, but...
Hey, Jeff, let me ask you that in terms of flavor of these things. You know, we've seen a lot of them where, you know, you get some really vitriolic anti-Trump talk. We're not even sure who's going to be the next president, if President Trump's going to get reelected or if Joe Biden's going to be the next one. And then we've also seen, you know, last night, Minneapolis police arrested 13 people for a real small gathering. And there was some, you know, really aggressive verbal abuse being hurled at police and law enforcement. Was that, what was the flavor of this thing tonight? Was it directed at anybody? Was it really nasty like we've heard some of these, or what was it like?
You are all under arrest for public.
Thank you for your patience there. I didn't.
Shut your vehicles off.
Prior to this situation that's occurring, I don't think there was any aggression. I think last night when we saw people marching in Uptown, there was some graffiti going on. There was a little bit of destruction. I didn't see any of that happening as we were walking through the Cedar Riverside neighborhood. and I didn't see when we saw those officers on bicycle, the dozen officers or so, as we approached the highway. The organizers of the protest were reminding the people, saying, do not worry about the officers. Remember why we're here. Let's focus on our march. Let's stay close. Let's stay safe. Do not pay attention to the officers. We need to keep doing what we're doing. Well, now there's really no other option. The officers have forced the hand, and so now we're seeing that little bit of aggression, that animosity towards officers. That was part of the rhetoric as people were marching earlier. At the police, things of that nature that we were hearing. Well, those are the same chants that we've heard at protests all summer. Now they have the officers as an audience to hear it directly and to kind of
all under arrest.
Hey, Jeff, can you stay on the line, because I want to bring Jennifer Mayerle in as well. So, Jen, it's 17 minutes after 8. Interstate 94 west and eastbound is shut down, and this group of protesters that Jeff's kind of embedded with, reporting on, are kind of corralled on all sides by the police. What have you been able to find out? Where are you? What can you add?
Frank, I'm right here on Interstate 94. I am sitting down right now because we are surrounded by police. They have told us to all sit down, that we are all being arrested. And this is the scene right now that you can see on Interstate 94. We are surrounded by law enforcement. Grant, our photographer, is showing you the scene here down 94. There are people still on the interstate that were part of the protests and marches. We are sitting down because that is what law enforcement has asked everyone to do, is to sit down where they are on 94. Of course, we were here with the protesters and marchers here to document what they are doing, what they are talking about. But again, right now, we are still here on Interstate 94 inside this area where we cannot leave. We did show them our press badges and say, hey, we are WCCO. No movement. No one is being allowed outside of this line currently that you are seeing all the way around us. I can tell you that the people that are around us right here are sitting down. Most of them have been quiet. There have been some chants since kind of being surrounded. I can tell you, Grant, if you can look to the right, there are more, I'm seeing mounted police that are actually just off 94 and other law enforcement that are gathering up, but more law enforcement that are in this area, aside from what is just here on 94 with us. So this area definitely surrounded. I'd say Jeff has probably been telling you about the group of people that are here, why they gathered. We started originally with a different group than he did. We started at the Hennepin County Government Center with a group that was really pre-planned before election night, because they said they felt like there was going to be issues with the election. They wanted to talk and rally for democracy and a fair election. And they decided that they wanted to get that message out, as well as some other social justice issues. And then they marched from the Hennepin County Government Center into the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, Cedar and 3rd. And that's where we met up with Jeff Wagner and his team. From there, these two groups joined forces and walked down and marched down onto I-94. Now, along the way as we were walking, police were blocking some areas for them to go. But again, for a while they were walking, marching here with chants, marching peacefully though, and that's when all of a sudden things came to a halt, and this is what now is going on. Law enforcement came on to the interstate and told people to stay where they are. They're holding a line here right now. We haven't heard that message in a little while, but I know I was hearing it with Jeff and with us, saying that everyone in this area will be arrested. No one is allowed to kind of breach this line right now. So again, I put on my WCCO hat to show who we are, that we are here to document what is happening, and we are sitting down. We can now is because we've been asked to sit, so that's what we are doing while we wait for word on what comes next. Frank?
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, from what Grant has shown us when he kind of gives us a 360 panorama, I mean,
sure.
You're surrounded. That group is surrounded. What are there, maybe 50 people or maybe more that you're with?
In terms of on the interstate, Frank?
Yeah.
I would say on the interstate around us, I mean, there's more than that. I can see behind us, there were probably at least 100 with us walking from the Hennepin County Government Center to the other group, and there was probably a couple hundred there. I don't know how many actually made it on 94. If I had to guess, it'd be somewhere around 200 to 300, and that we're all marching on I-94. I posted some of the images to Twitter, so you might be able to see a different vantage point when we were higher up. Of what it looked like as we were walking. But again, now completely surrounded off 94 and all the way around us. When I was back further before we got up here to the front and kind of tried to make our way off the interstate to document from the other side of the police line, I saw State Patrol on the backside on 94, and this is, our State Patrol is also straight ahead of us. So again, completely surrounded by law enforcement. So far, they've been fairly quiet and have not really been talking with folks other than to say that someone over a loudspeaker that has continued to say everyone here is under arrest. It looks like there is a group to the right that is holding hands and talking. Hard to hear what they're saying from right where I am.
Yeah.
Again, we've been sitting here on the ground, doing what we have been asked to do. But again, Frank, this is what has culminated from 2 different rallies that combined, that came together, that came onto Interstate 94, and now here we are at this hour.
And this was planned. We had talked about this before. This demonstration was going to happen regardless. But you've been talking to a lot of law enforcement folks. Their response has been planned for weeks, if not more, right? I mean, this is a multi-agency. We're going to be ready for anything, National Guard and Reserve. We're not interested in seeing more riots. Shed a little light on that, please.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's what we know, is that the police plan for events. An election is an event that they knew, was coming. Just like the Super Bowl or something else, something that we know is upon us, they have planned for it. We've been talking with from the state coordination to local law enforcement like Minneapolis Police and St. Paul Police, especially given the unrest that those cities saw after the death of George Floyd. They were even on more heightened alert and awareness and planning before election night. Now we know that Minneapolis Police has a command center that's set up, that was set up yesterday, and we know that it is staffed through the week. They are there monitoring what's happening. We know they have cameras across the city that can keep an eye on what's happening. And in that room, all those cameras are all lined up. So police have been watching, I would imagine, these protesters and where they've been moving and what's been going on. So we know that, yes, police have planned, the state has planned. They said they are ready, they're not going to get caught off guard, and that should anything happen, they would be ready to respond. And like you mentioned, this is something that didn't just happen when they started protesting. This has been a planned response for some time now.
Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, you and I have seen enough of these now over a few years. We're coming up on 8:25. I know they've been on the freeway now for almost about 45 minutes. I thought that their presence came a lot quicker than what I've seen in other protests this summer and this year, where they let protesters go for a long time and before they come in, but they intervened pretty quickly. That being said, the first announcement I heard of "you're under arrest, clear the highway" was 25 minutes ago. So now, I mean, the initial response I thought was quicker, and now, though, it doesn't look like they're in any hurry to take action. I mean, do you agree with kind of both those assessments? What are you seeing there?
Sure. We didn't get that far walking down the interstate before this was put to a stop. So yes, the response was fairly quick. They let them walk for a certain length, but then quickly put a stop to it. But we have, as you said, we have been hearing that arrests will be made for some time now, and that has not happened. I'm not sure what next move is from police and how they intend to make these arrests and whatnot. But again, a lot of people here are standing up. They have asked for people to sit down, stay where they are, but a lot of people still standing. Police holding the line is what we say, holding the line, which is the line all around the protesters here along I-94.
Yeah.
But at this point, we know they have not been given word to come in, because when that happens, we've seen that happen before, and then that does move fast, Frank.
Yeah, unless, well, here's the other thing too. I heard some clapping in the background. I don't know if that was in support of someone getting arrested, but Jeff Wagner just posted on Twitter that the State Patrol is slowly beginning to arrest people, and it's happening kind of like on the back side of where you are, Jen. So if you're sitting down, I'm not sure you can see it, but he posted some video. There's again, it's 4 officers go in, arrest 1 person, pull that person out, and that process takes time.
It does.
So
sure. There's a lot of people out here.
Yeah, and I can see now I was wrong on that number of 40 or 50. There's more than that I can just see in the frame. Here's a live picture now, Jen, that we're looking at, and we can see, again, some officers in support, keep an eye on the crowd, a couple officers going ahead and arresting someone. They've put a zip tie on him. Now they're backing him or her out of the crowd. And if this is the process that goes on for a while, it's gonna take some time. And 94 eastbound and westbound, right east of Minneapolis near Augsburg, is going to be shut down for a long time, folks. If you're trying to get anywhere, don't. Obviously, MnDOT told us a long time ago not to go anywhere. And Jen, on a much lighter note, the digital MnDOT sign says travel time when Grant's camera hit it to Interstate 35W 3 minutes. So there's some irony in that tonight.
Certainly, it'll take a lot longer. You probably could walk there quicker than you could drive there at this point. We did see a number of cars that were backed up, that were just fully stopped even before police moved in. So, I feel those people are going to be probably waiting there for some time too, unless there is a way for them to turn around. But they'll be waiting while all of this gets resolved, however that happens here tonight and whatever time. But I have a feeling this might be a long night ahead, Frank.
Yeah, talk to us about flavor, because I asked Jeff the same question. Was this a lot of anti-police rhetoric? Was it a bunch of anti-Trump? Was it pro-Biden? Was it none of those? What was the feel and flavor of the whole thing? Because, there's just so much uncertainty about the election right now.
Sure. It was the group that we immediately were with from the beginning of the day was mainly about the election. They want a fair election. They were concerned by statements that were made by candidates last night, and they are against, what they told me is they were against Trump, but also want to see more from Joe Biden. So they weren't really fully in support of either candidate. And talking about that and what the country needs right now. They also talked about some social justice issues, about defunding the police. They talked about looking at climate change. They talked about a fair minimum wage. And then as we moved closer with the other group, other issues started coming up. We heard the Black Lives Matter chants. We heard other things come up, all the while still kind of going back to some of that original message about the election. So there has been a multitude of things that have been talked about and chanted and kind of discussed tonight. But once you're on the interstate and once they're marching, they're really doing more of the chants and some of the yells, and you're not getting a lot of a full message, right? You're just hearing some of those chants as they're marching. Yeah.
So if you're just joining us, folks, it's 8:30 right now. We've been here on CBSN, our digital channel, live since about 7:45, and that was right about the time that this group of protesters made their way onto Interstate 94. Our Jennifer Mayerle, along with our photojournalist Grant, are literally sitting down in this group with the protest. This is Grant's camera that you see. We had our helicopter in the air. We have both sides of Interstate 94. Initially, it was just eastbound lanes closed, but now the westbound lanes are closed as well.
Hey.
Police are using that to kind of keep everyone surrounded in one area.
Grant, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the line of police
Frank,
officers.
I just want to interrupt just because
Yeah, what's
there's
up?
more just cars coming on the interstate now, so we're not exactly sure what's happening, but there is a long line of state patrol vehicles as far as I can see, and they're all coming down on I-94 right now.
Yeah,
so just another show of the force that you're seeing right there, in addition to the line that's being held right now.
Yeah, I see them, and we also saw a lot of those kind of mini white buses. Actually,
Yes.
I can see from Grant's camera they're escorting someone that they arrested into one of those mini white buses back there. But if this is if it takes 100 officers to corral the group, 5 officers to arrest one person, and then walk them back and put them on the bus, walk back, you're going to be there a long time.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we have seen this before. We've seen a show of force. Personally, for me, this is the largest show of force that I have seen covering one of these types of protests. And I've been covering some here in Minneapolis since 2014. So we've seen these, and I believe this is the biggest show that I have seen that has surrounded a group that I have been with. So we keep seeing more walking down the interstate toward us. We keep seeing more arriving. The mounted patrol is going by us on the other side of the interstate right now.
Yeah, I see them too.
And we do see more, those vans and whatnot coming this way as well.
Stay on the line, Jen, because I want to ask you a little bit more
Sure.
of that. But if you stay on the line, because I'd love for you to maybe hear Jeff Wagner if you can out and you have that capability. But Jeff's back with us. So, Jeff, where are you? What's going on?
Kind of in the same spot. I'm actually probably about, sorry if you're hearing some foul language in my vicinity, I'm probably about 20, 30 yards from where Jennifer is. She was sitting underneath the exit ramp sign, and I'm on the center of the highway on the pavement, kind of in between the group of protesters and the median wall of law enforcement. I'm not sure if Jennifer mentioned this or you guys saw it a little bit ago. Did you see that large caravan of law enforcement state patrol vehicles that were
Jen
driving
pointed
down
it out
the
to
westbound
us.
lanes?
Yeah, what was that about?
I'm still trying to find that out myself. I couldn't tell if they were linked. You know what? Maybe they did a loop and to get onto the eastbound lane, because now I'm seeing more law enforcement vehicles coming this way on the eastbound lane towards us, towards those wagons, those buses that are in the back. So it's possible that it was just more reinforcements to join the officers who are here.
Yeah,
But
well,
again, it just was quite the sight. There's already so many officers here, whether it be State Patrol, Minneapolis Police, maybe Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, but and then we're seeing planes above us and everything too. But then see what felt like dozens of squad cars drive by. You almost wondered, is this for us? Because it already seemed like there was such a large presence. But unless there's something else going on, I imagine it is for the group that's here.
well, we'll get Nick to check that out. From what I can tell from the video and some of the tweets you sent and some of the other things we saw, they're making arrests, but they're happening slowly. I mean, I can't tell if they've arrested more than 6 to 10 people.
Yeah, and I think maybe in the back area where people have chosen to sit and they're complying with what officers are saying, officers were literally walking up. Is a very peaceful arrest. I'm not sure if that's the way to put it, but just walking up and telling the person to stand up and then beginning to put the zip ties on their wrists, move one person. It's almost like one person at a time. It's not like they're trying to wrangle a group of 10 officers running in and grabbing 10 people. It would be 2 officers walk up, tell someone to stand up, arrest them, move them out. And this is a very slow, long process, and maybe that's to prevent things from getting too aggressive or agitated by just slowly taking one protester away at a time. Some of the protesters were here that are being a bit more defiant. They're upset that they're being arrested when they felt like they weren't doing anything but exercising their First Amendment right, albeit on an interstate. Outside of blocking the traffic, at this point, there wasn't any destruction that we might have seen in other protests or what would happen late at night during the days after the death of George Floyd. So I think that's where part of the aggression is here as well. Yeah, that's one of the updates I got for you right now.
Yeah, no, I get it. Who's the F this and F that directed at? Is it Trump? Is it Biden? Or is it the police when we hear these people?
It's at police at this point, I think, because the police have surrounded the protesters. I haven't heard much talk of Trump or the election since we've been here on I-94. Again, the chants that were being said when people were marching up to the highway and on the highway were "Say his name, George Floyd." It was very reminiscent of the protests that we have been covering and seeing ever since late May.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if there was a shift from talking about the election earlier tonight and the implications of it to the same issues that people have been trying to bring awareness to this whole summer, which I think was the precipice of having this today, saying, no matter what happens in this election, we need to remember what we've been fighting for weeks. Someone can be elected today that's not going to make a difference for tomorrow for some of these people. In their opinion, it might not make a difference if there's a change of power in January. Some people were saying we've had DFL power in Minneapolis all these years in the Twin Cities area, and they feel like it hasn't gotten them anywhere. They're still dealing with those issues of feeling like they're oppressed, of feeling like the police are targeting persons of color, of police brutality, things of that nature. So it's just a reminder to them that they don't feel like they've won anything if there's a change of power in the White House. They still need to keep fighting for the issues they've been fighting about for weeks, months, maybe even going back further beyond George Floyd at this point.
Jeff, I'm gonna let you hold it there. I think Jen's with one of the organizers of the protest making some kind of announcement, so we want to get to that. Jen? Okay.
Well, Frank, I'm a little bit away from this, but Nikema Levy-Pounds was at the second rally as one of the speakers, and she's there talking right now. We're just going to see if you can hear what she is saying to law enforcement there. Nikema, it's Jennifer with WCCO. Would you like to come talk with us about what you're doing here tonight? We're live on TV. We're live on TV right now. I know you were one of the speakers tonight.
Sure. Thank you for being out here. This is ridiculous. This was a peaceful demonstration. We were just coming on the freeway, getting off, just one exit. Everything was fine and safe and shut down. They had the officers behind us, so they kettled us in, right? Then we have these officers here. Nikema tried to talk with them. They will not say who was in charge. They will not say, we asked if we could just leave. Peacefully, we were just getting off here, going back. They continue to send more and more officers with this extreme militarized force here, completely unacceptable. But we know what this is. This is because law enforcement agencies all gave their backing to Donald Trump, and now this is the extreme, what we're seeing.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to march and what you were rallying about tonight?
So what the original march was set up for was just for whoever would win the race, really. But to say that we still need change, that people are still suffering. We need to undo what the Trump administration has done in terms of damaging and causing harm to so many people. But we also know that the Democrats have not been doing their part as well. So we're saying what we want to see happen, what we want. We've got solidarity out here. We've got people from unions. We've got people stop endless wars, families, everything. The people who are being demonized and criminalized by this system. So we want to say that whatever administration gets in, we need some things to change, right? And also, it was like for Donald Trump, like, don't steal the election. We already knew he was going to do that, try and do that anyway.
So you were making your voices heard tonight. And Grant, you can show a little bit about what's happening around us as we are talking here. And please, again, tell me your name.
Monique Colors-Doty.
Okay, and you just part of the group that was out here tonight?
Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar, yes.
Have things changed now that this has happened? Has the message changed tonight?
Our message is still the same, but we're calling on Governor Walz to call off this militarized force that is out here against us. They are continuing to try and escalate a situation. Look you got the highway patrol, you got officers, you got horses. Why are there horses out here? You know?
How are you feeling right now in this moment as you are here, you were trying to make your voice heard, and now here we are all together on 90.
Hold the city accountable. Hold the city accountable.
Yeah. How I feel? I feel good. I mean, we came and we did what we had to do, and this is a risk that we know that we take. And like Jesus' disciples, they said what they had to say. They were arrested, they were beaten, they were flogged, they were killed, beheaded. And this is a risk that we take, that we come up against law enforcement. For those who are on the side, do not stand with justice, you know, and this is what they're making the choice, their paycheck over justice.
How do you hope this ends tonight?
I hope that they just let us off so we can continue and just go back to our cars. That all this money that they're spending and paying these officers, overtime and all of this is ridiculous. I don't know if it's just a practice and an exercise for what they think might happen, or they bought all this equipment and they feel they need to try it out.
Do you think, though, that everyone will leave calmly, peacefully, and go back home if they're allowed to go from here?
Absolutely. That's all we were going to do anyway. You know?
Thank you very much for talking with us. Thank you. So, Frank, you just heard it from one of the organizers of the march and the rally, that they wanted to make their voice heard about this election, that they feel change needs to happen no matter who becomes our next president. And in the midst of doing that, this is the situation we are currently in. A number of people here on Interstate 94 surrounded by law enforcement.
Yeah, and I looked when Grant was panning around. I can't tell if their arrests are still happening, or are those folks that are walking around behind you, are they being given a chance to get out of there? Is there anywhere
it's hard
to
for
go?
me to tell, because we have been at this point, there's really nowhere to go.
Yeah.
We're surrounded on either side of us, so, and they're not letting anyone pass through. I mean, we've even asked as media if we can go to the other side and report from over there. No one's responding. So there is nowhere to go. On the fence on the side of the interstate, there are, law enforcement up there, all the way around on either side, and certainly right here behind us. I mean, we are right here next to the State Patrol. And this is, again, we are right kind of in the thick of things here. We came up into this position when they finally asked everyone to stay where they were, because we were trying to go through there. But hard to tell, nowhere for anyone to go unless they are being moved by law enforcement. Yeah,
well, you've got a median on one side, that huge wall behind you, and then police officers if you head north or south. By the way, Jen, State Patrol just, we were trying to get some answers from them. They estimate there's about 200 people there with you guys. So, pretty decent sized group. And if they try to arrest all of them, it's going to take a while.
Right. So a number of people up here in front by us. There's a group here that looks like they are all talking together and listening to what's being said, and then there's a little bit of a distance behind between us and the next group, where there were people up here, and it looks like they've moved back. So people kind of spread out through this area that is surrounded here on I-94. But certainly a lot going on, and someone even on a skateboard over here. So people finding ways to pass the time, Frank. That's something new.
Well, we heard Monique speaking, and we're actually checking with the governor's office to see if there is, what kind of command and control there might be over this thing tonight, and if there'd be an opportunity for these folks to leave. I did hear with my own ears, as we had our live shots reporting, we did hear disperse, or we're going to arrest you. And we heard that maybe about 45 minutes ago. I mean, we're coming up on 8:45 right now, and I think closer to 8 o'clock, we heard we're going to arrest you. And then a lot of folks didn't leave, and I know Jeff reported the organizer said just stay together. Some folks climbed the fence to get out of there.
Sure. There were people trying to climb the fence, and some of them were met with law enforcement trying to kind of get them back in and saying, no, you're not leaving. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how things play out, and who knows, maybe some decision from higher up says, you know what, you made your statement, go ahead and leave, let's open the interstate back open. But I mean, the interstate has been closed now for at least an hour. It's the main thoroughfare between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And if you're just tuning in, folks, Jennifer Mayerle's here in the thick of the protest, and our Jeff Wagner is as well. State Patrol tells us there's about 200 people on the interstate. And Jen, am I right in my reference point? Are you near Augsburg? Is that right about where you are on 94 near?
If you are, Grant, if you can turn with me, you can see actually the sign that says Augsburg University U of M West Bank.
Okay.
So
that's
you can
exactly
kind of get an idea of where we are here.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Frank.
Well, I was curious, because we see so many police officers and State Patrol, and it's not a coincidence. Can you, because this was a story you were working on this week, can you kind of explain to us why there were so many, why they mobilized so quickly? I mean, this response was really coordinated, correct?
It absolutely was, from the state all the way down to local levels. The Department of Public Safety coordinated with law enforcement agencies across the state, really, for the election, but particularly with Minneapolis and St. Paul, knowing of the unrest that we had earlier this year. And both of those agencies had plans in place, had command centers up and going. This is election week, not just day. It's something that they've been prepping and planning for, and they already had additional resources yesterday, today, ready to respond should anything happen. Police tell me they plan and they hope they never have to implement that plan, but should something happen, should something spark, should something arise, then they are ready to go. They said that we will not be caught off guard. It was what the Commissioner of Public Safety, John Harrington, told me just yesterday, and he said that the response first will be on the local level, but then if they need more support, that they have the State Patrol, they've been talking with DNR, they've been talking with other state agencies, that they would be ready to come support. And tonight we are here, right here with the State Patrol, and you can see that they are here to support Minneapolis police. They are here to support in this effort to, well, right now, stop what's happening on I-94 and stop this march. But like you mentioned, this did not just happen when these marchers came onto I-94. This has been a pre-planned and a ready response, if you will, from law enforcement. And that's why we're seeing here tonight. And we know that law enforcement was monitoring what was happening. We even saw police along the marching route following along with some of the protesters. So they knew where they were every step of the way. And now they're here with us.
Yeah, well, it's almost like they gave the police something to do, because you've got all of these people, all this man and woman power just sitting around waiting, and then all of a sudden this happened. So as we give a live overhead shot from our chopper, you know, you can see just how big the response is, and how many flashing lights and how many law enforcement officers and how many vans that they have at the ready to try to arrest people. They estimate this crowd at about 200 people. Jen, you know, it's weird because now we're kind of have the ability, which we didn't have a couple of years ago, of judging the anger and hostility or passion or positivity of different protests, because now we've seen so many. Describe this one. This one looks like relatively mellow, especially compared to some of the ones we saw this summer.
Yes, I mean, you know, I think people here came into tonight, it felt like to me like they came into this tonight with a little bit calmer, if you will, and maybe that's what we're seeing some of here tonight. Most of them said they just want their voices heard, they want to matter, they want what they say to matter. And we just heard, you know, from one of the organizers that said that's still what she wants, is to have her voice heard and to see change and for people to know that change still needs to happen. And this did seem like a little bit of a calmer crowd than some of what we saw over the summer. But people here definitely still have that feeling that I believe they had this summer, maybe just channeling it in a different way, because I don't feel like their message has changed that much, Frank. I feel like their message is still the same, that they want better and they want change.
Yeah, and we've been hearing it, and I'd imagine we're going to keep hearing it, and we've got a lot of things ahead of us as a city and state, and we'll kind of be the epicenter of it. So that'll be interesting as well. When you were scanning around and Grant was panning around, are they still doing the one by one arrest? I can't tell.
We have not seen any on our side, so I can't see where they're doing any arrests right now, and on our side I have not seen any. So hard for me to say at this vantage point what's going on the other side, but on our side we are still standing here, and nothing has changed. No arrests have been made so far that I can see. So the unknown here tonight, Frank, is how this all ends, and when this ends.
Yeah, and when.
So we'll be here standing by.
Yeah, if for any reason, if someone, obviously they made the obvious statement an hour ago, avoid that area in your car. But when we put the chopper up, Jen, I can tell you that most of the cars, I mean, there were cars backed up for miles, headlights and taillights, eastbound and westbound. And you don't see that anymore because they must have it, MnDOT must have it blocked off somewhere or have a lot of signage, and they actually let some of those people like turn up the down ramps and to get off the freeway. So, it's just you, the media, this group of about 200 protesters, and a lot of state troopers and a lot of police officers and a lot of deputies as we make our way close to the 9 o'clock hour. And I know you guys have been there since 7:45 this evening.
Yeah, we certainly have, and this group has, we were talking about how this all started with two rallies, with rallies that were planned before the election, but continued on tonight as scheduled. And these two groups merged together and started marching, and shortly, they didn't get too far along I-94 before we came into the situation that we are in now, where orders were given to disperse or arrests will be made, and then orders that anyone who is still here will be arrested. I should mention that, when that happened, we tried to go to the other side and we were too late, which just gives you an idea. We were probably in the middle of the crowd, so it gives you an idea of how quickly that changed from the first time we were able to actually hear the order to disperse, the first one I heard, to then when we were told that we would be arrested, we couldn't get the 100 yards or so to leave. So it did happen, in my perspective, fairly quickly. But again, many people still here with us tonight, media and marchers, surrounded, at least on our side, by the State Patrol.
Yeah. CBS breaking news: the Trump campaign has sued to stop the vote counts in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Trump campaign sues to stop the vote count in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. I wouldn't tell those people there that, Jen, but since we're on the air doing live news and the election's one of the biggest stories here and has a bearing on this, I just thought I'd share that with the group that's listening. So we're also working to actually try to find if there is someone in authority to ask kind of the questions that some of your folks were asking about. Are these people past the point of no return, since they were told to disperse earlier and they didn't? Is everyone there going to get arrested? And are they going to hopefully sort out the media and let you guys pass? Or is there still an opportunity to say, hey, let's call it a day and move off the freeway? I'd imagine on a November 4th night, when it's 55 degrees out, the issue isn't being pressed the same way it would be if it was last week when it was 25 degrees out.
Right. It's a lot more comfortable out here tonight, Frank.
Yeah.
And it feels like, you could stay out here a lot longer than you could when the temperatures were colder. That everyone has a little bit more in them when you've got warmer weather like this, which can make things challenging at times.
Yeah.
So, again, unknown how long this will go on and how long both sides will stay like this. But so far, no one trying to push the line that I've seen. Everyone's staying at least they're a distance back and not trying to, they've been talking to State Patrol or saying things to State Patrol, but no one pushing the limit at this point, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it seems like, I didn't see any flashbangs, I didn't see any tear gas, I didn't see
No.
any nightsticks and that kind of thing either. So maybe it's just a bit of a slow roll standoff, and we'll see how things go. And I guess that's good on all sides,
right? Yeah, we will
right?
be monitoring this.
Yeah.
Right. We'd like this to stay calm. And at this moment, I can tell you that that's how it feels where I am standing, other than the fact that we are here and stuck at the moment, staying in put where we are. Let's come. Do you want? I'm seeing my colleague Jeff Wagner over here right now, and I think he's been in a different area.
Let's see what Jeff can add.
So I think we should. Yeah, Jeff, what have you been seeing?
So we're in the back area right now, and some of the organizers got on a megaphone and were explaining to people that we're trying to gather anyone who is a parent or is here with children to try and get them processed by law enforcement first. I watched as the organizers spoke with State Patrol because they have this understanding, again, this is what the organizers were telling us, the media, that State Patrol was under advisement from the Lieutenant Governor to try and get parents who are here home to their children. So there's a group of about 12 to 20 adults who claim to have children at home who do not want to be here much longer, who are almost giving themselves up in order to get home. And I was overhearing, listening to the conversation between this organizer and State Patrol, who was saying, we have a process. You know, it was a very peaceful conversation, a very calm conversation. The State Patrol saying, gather everyone who's a parent in one area and have them sit down. So that's happening in the back section.
And Jeff, when you say process, does that mean arrested, cited, booked, or does that mean, hey, we're going to talk to you and we're letting you through? Did you get an idea about that, a sense about that?
That I could not tell if the word process meant the way we are going to get you home or we're going to process you, which in law enforcement speak could be detain you or arrest you. But there was some sort of calm discourse happening between one of the organizers and one of the members of State Patrol to try and gather anyone who has children together to go home. Not children here specifically, but people who maybe thought they'd already went home by now to their kids. They want to leave at this point.
And Jeff, back there, are there arrests happening? Are they putting many people in handcuffs or in ties?
And I don't know if you've seen it up here, but it's happening, as I explained to Frank, very slowly, where two officers will approach one person, have them stand up, put the zip ties on them and remove that person. It's almost like they're doing one arrest every 2 or 3 minutes. It's very slow.
We haven't seen that up here on our side, so maybe they're working that way. Sure. So far here, Jeff, we've just seen State Patrol holding the line and people sometimes talking to them, but not pushing the limit, and that no one has stepped forward to place anyone under arrest or otherwise.
It was a very interesting situation. One of the organizers getting on a microphone saying, could members of the media please witness what we are about to do? We are apparently trying to negotiate with law enforcement right now, and we want to make sure you see what's happening. We're trying to converse with them about getting parents home, so please witness this for us to make sure that, you know, this is what's actually happening. We're not being lied to. And again, the conversation between this organizer and the law enforcement, the State Patrolman, did seem cordial, and there seemed to be a mutual understanding here when it came to getting parents processed and out of here.
Hearing more chants now, Jeff, more of a crowd that's gathered kind of in the middle of this area, in the middle of, we've been surrounded.
So it's a bit more
so,
active in that direction.
Yeah, now cheers, I guess let's walk that way. We haven't heard anything telling us to do anything otherwise for a little while, so let's go see what's happening here in the middle. And here we are, we're walking up on 94 now to see kind of how this crowd has gathered. This is part of the group of marchers, protesters that walked onto I-94 much earlier tonight. We have been with them documenting what they are marching for, which tonight has been a whole slew of different issues, from the election to social justice. And here they are, we're hearing more chants now. This appears to be kind of in the middle. If you're seeing our video now, we're actually coming up to the end of the line. So I'm now finally able to see how far we are walking and kind of what the in-between here looks like. So here's the other side with, then the other side of the line with the State Patrol. People are sitting down. I see someone there. Grant, if you can see the person with his hands up right there. This is, we're just walking up here to see. All right. We are finding out now that there's been some negotiations with law enforcement, maybe to get some parents home. Can you tell me a little bit about, we're live on WCCO on CBSN Minnesota. Can you tell me a little bit about what's been happening to try to get some of these people out? And what is this process like? Is this to be processed and cited, or just to be able to leave?
Hi, my name's Sam Martinez. I'm with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar. We did the organizing for this event tonight because Trump, as you noticed, is trying to steal the elections. We were completely peacefully protesting tonight. There was no warnings given to get off of the highway or to not enter the highway. In fact, the highway was completely open for us. So and the cops were lining up ahead of us getting on the highway. So if they didn't want us to be on the highway, they should have never let us on the highway because they knew exactly what they were doing and what we were doing. And so all that's been happening tonight is people have been protesting peacefully and chanting. These are all parents you see lined up before you. So they either have youth with them right now or they have youth that they're trying to get home. And there's also juveniles under 18 as well. And so we're trying to get people off of the highway because normally we would have exited over an hour or so ago, but the police are refusing to let us off of the highway without giving us any warnings, which is actually undemocratic against our First Amendment rights.
I've got a couple questions for you. First, what is this negotiation process like?
Stressful. Yeah.
What are you negotiating? What is that conversation like? Can you walk us through it?
I have a good answer for you. Supposedly, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan said she talked about. So right now, people are sitting down. These are all parents right here and youth that are sitting down. Supposedly, Peggy Flanagan said that they're going to get the families out of here without arrest. And so
we see some people there talking, Grant, just to the left with law enforcement. There's some people standing up actually having a conversation. What is that conversation like?
I'm not sure. I don't know who those people are. I know some people are trying to go and they're probably trying to figure out how old some of those people are because they do know that people are under 18 and so they would have to go to juvenile, but we're trying to keep them with their families right now.
Is it your understanding that these people are being arrested?
Yes.
If they are walking out, these are being arrested?
Supposedly we're all being arrested.
So when you're talking to negotiate to get them out of here, that's not just to go home and go on their own way on their own. This is actually to be...
Flanagan said that's what they're supposed to be doing with the state sheriff or the state troopers. We cannot predict what the police are going to be doing because they were supposed to give us warnings to get off of here peacefully, and that never happened either. They've been arresting press lately. This is undemocratic against First Amendment.
So let me ask you this. You had just mentioned, hey, if they hadn't come and stopped us, we would have been off the interstate an hour ago. What was the original plan? Was there an exit point that you intended to get off?
Right there. We're literally right in front of the exit. We're on the exit to get off and march back peacefully back to where we started, but they would refuse to let us off without any warnings. So we were all set to go. This should have been over an hour ago, at least, probably.
And what is your hope, I guess, on how this all ends tonight? What would your message be on how you, to your community here, and how you would like this to end with law enforcement?
This is why we need to stand up and fight back against Trump racist presidency, fascist presidency, anti-immigrant presidency. This is why we're here tonight. We're about democracy and about peacefully protesting and having justice for people killed by police violence.
Thank you very much. Thank you for talking with us. Okay, well, we're going to give you one more look. Grant, let's go this way so we can kind of move out of the crowd here a little bit. And just give you a look. Yes, Frank?
You know what? I might let you go ahead and take this and roll with it and keep you live on CBSN. And Matt's in the booth. And I know you guys have got so much interesting stuff to talk about and to see what's going on. And we're going to get ready for the 10 o'clock news on the TV side. But we'll keep your digital signal up and love your reporting and your interviews and your insight. So you and Jeff can carry this thing. And then Amelia and I will get ready to put it together for 10 o'clock as well. And we appreciate all your effort down there tonight. And I'll let you communicate directly with Matt.
All right, thank you, Frank. Yeah, we will stay here live showing you what we are doing here on the interstate and what we have going on. We are, again, here in the middle of I-94, where a number, State Patrol has estimated about 200 protesters still here who are marching on I-94 that are now surrounded by law enforcement.